My name is George Boiter and I'm a watercolour artist, and I'm here by the banks of the Thames with Henley in the background. I hope you can see it. I'm going to paint this scene today. It's against the light, so that's contre-jour. See if we can capture a nice atmosphere, and yeah, let's go. The watercolour will be done in 4 distinct stages. There's the drawing, that's followed by the wash, then that's followed by the wet in wet phase, and then finally there's some dry brush strokes to pull it all together. Should take about an hour and a half. And so I'm about to get started on the drawing, and I've outlined the actual shape that I've decided to use here, which is quite a panoramic shape. I think it's appropriate because it's an unusual composition in that our focal point, the town of Henley, is actually tucked away in the distance. So we've got, I want to avoid having too much depth of just this fairly bland surface of the river and the sky. The eye should go very quickly in towards this town in the distance. So I'm going to draw this very lightly. I hope it'll be visible, but I have to get the drawing right, but I also have to keep it light so that I can make any adjustments. So the first thing I'm going to decide is where my horizon line is. It's also my eye line because I'm just standing looking. And I think just below, I don't want it to be halfway because that would make the composition a bit too symmetrical, top and bottom. So I think my horizon line will be somewhere around there, maybe a little bit higher. So I'm just going to draw it in very lightly. There we go. Right, okay, so everything hangs off of that really. We've got somewhere over here are the marks I'll make which indicate Henley, and fortunately I can just see the church tower, but this overhanging tree is a nice feature, so I've got to plot that and just see if I can make all of this work in a way that's pleasing to the eye. And as you can hear, I've got a full complement of ducks and swans just to my right, are competing for attention, and I think they're possibly also they want to be included in the picture. So let's see. So I've got my trees overhanging. That means that down here I've got the left bank of the river coming down here, and then I've got this bank that I'm actually standing on here, and it's more of that shape. Anyway, yeah, the tree is nice because it comes well over past the halfway point, halfway across the composition here. So composition is, as I say, it's critical to get this right. And this is the stage when your eyes really do play tricks on you. So you've got to be, that's one reason for keeping it all very light. but you also need to really observe very, very closely when you're doing a drawing. So this gives us a very shallow arrow shape in there. There's some nice distinctive trees here, which for anyone who lives in the Henley area, they'd be quite well known, probably. Quite distinctive trees, and they're nice because they break up a line here. So far so good. It might be an idea to have a little boat which is coming up the river towards me. Don't want to make it too chocolate box, too picturesque, but you know, let's see what the day throws at us. And the placing of these things is really important. You don't want lots of detail. This is not about detail. This is about atmosphere. And what kind of atmosphere do we have? Well, it's a changeable day, but the sun is definitely coming out. So maybe that's partly what I need to capture, is the fact that some parts are in sun and some parts are in shadow. You can see I'm just emphasising now as I go back over the compositional elements. I'm emphasising some of the things that I think, well, that's in the right place, and it's going to be good for the composition. The trees, they're lovely trees, and like so many things, you mustn't overcomplicate these elements. You've just got to, it's all about getting the right impression. So that's what I'm concentrating on as I draw. And the fact is that you can't do anything unless you can create the right drawing, first of all. You've got to also see in your head, you must see your finished picture. That's not easy, because you're full of decisions that have to be made here, and the usual artist's insecurity about whether you think you can do it or not. But I think this is possible. It feels like it's coming along quite nicely. So yeah, I quite like this little boat in here. It's got the flavour of the river and Henley. In a way, you can't do Henley without a boat in it. But I don't want it to get, as I say, too chocolate box like. But there's what I think is called a sward of grass, which has got some here, and that picks up the light, and then we get into Henley proper. Some trees here, tree there, this may go further up, and I don't try and draw too definitely. It's I mean, it's such an enjoyable experience to draw that after a while your hand seems to take over. You just let your eye pick something up and respond with your hand. So okay, so far so good. Like that tree there, and then there there are some roofs here which are catching the light, and they work really well in terms of placing Henley in the distance. There's the church there. There are some buildings here, red roofs, not red bricks, and we just want a few little shapes here preserved. That's definitely a building to do with the regatta, it looks. And then there's a few boats here, but we're not going to get into detail. So I think my drawing is pretty much there. Don't need too much more than that. Just check that everything is in place. In a way, I wish there was a weeping willow. Maybe I'll just put one in here. Much more picturesque than clumpy bushes. I'm sure there's a willow down there, so artistic license is being employed here. So I'll just do a little bit more emphasis here, here, and this is all going to be leaves. The river. What do we do with the river? Well, what I know is it's a mirror image of the sky, except that it's moving, and it's like a quarter tone darker than the sky that it's reflecting. So that's an important tonal value that I have to get right. And there is a reflection here that I will need to deal with, because it's coming from this tree, and I'll just have to bear that in mind. Then here we've got lots of green, reflected green from this other side of the river, so I mustn't get too bogged down in that. I want the eye to go here. Okay, I think that's the drawing done. Yep, that's the drawing done. The next thing is the wash. So we've now done the drawing, and the next thing is to lay the first wash down, which captures the overall feel of the light. It's my spray bottle. That's very important, because particularly at this stage I need to keep the wash wet, and as you can see, I'm just putting some water into the leftovers in my palette here, but so that's quite grey. I need a little bit more cobalt in there, I think. And of course, everything that I put down on this wash will look quite dark, but it will dry very light. And of course, it's important to understand that you're judging all your values against white paper here, which is not a good way to judge them. Anyway, time to give this a go. My strategy for this is to do sky, and probably what I'll do, I think I'll stop at this horizon line. That'll give me a pause, and I'll try and just capture a little element of the clouds. I don't want too much of that, but that will be a matter of timing, really critical timing. And so let's just get some of this down here. You can see that it's just very, very tentative stuff here. I'm pushing this around really. and carry on. Okay, you just don't want any hard bits, but as you can see, it's unusual in that the sky is lighter at the top than it is at the base. So let's see if I can reflect some of that. A bit of cobalt blue. You can see why you tend to want some leftovers, because they neutralise the colour a bit. You don't want things to be too colourful at this stage. But timing is just so intensely important here. And if it's into wet, okay. Now, I think that's enough of those clouds, and what I want to do now is get lighter towards the horizon. Yep, looks quite nice actually. I might just lift out something, a few little bits here. Yep, I think I want that. It gives me a nice light background behind Henley. Okay, so far so good. And let me just I'm going to preserve a few bits of a few tiny little speckles of light here. Yeah. If I want any pure white bits, I need to think about these now and leave them in place. So this bit doesn't matter because I'll be going over all that. Okay, we've got down to the river's edge here. Now, I did say that the surface of the river, which is changing tonally the whole time, of course, because it is a changeable day, is slightly darker than the sky that it reflects. So I'm going to pick up some. This is cool grey I've got here. It looks like black, but it's cool grey, and the tonal value and even the colour is changing rapidly in front of me. But I know what I have to do. I've made up my mind. It's darker. And I just have to have enough of this that I feel I can. Yeah, I need some. That probably does it. A few little sparkles there, which is good for me. And let's do a little bit of that. Yeah, okay. Don't think I need these ones there. Let's keep going. A little bit of ultramarine in this time, and some cool grey. I want to get okay, get much darker here. in the foreground, a bit more grey. That helps us to create distance. If I get in here, and I'll keep going as long as I keep this nice and wet. You can hear the ducks. And I'm just concentrating here at the moment. I don't want to miss the moment of when I have to get in some of these strokes. You have to go in. It's dangerous working at this point into the wet because it can give you quite a few problems with cauliflowers, etc. And so maybe I should just get out of that. I think I need to attend to this side here with a little bit of cadmium yellow into the green that was there. I can carry on up here. Yep. And there. And just okay, that probably is all I need to do right now in terms of a wash. I'll stand back. That's very important to do that as often as possible, and that's going to have to dry. That is the wash as far as I can see it here. Wash done. The wash is now dried, and as always it's dried lighter than you expect, but now we go into the wet phase where we really create the scene. And normally you work in the mid-tones now and then finish up with the dark tones. The dark tones being the tree, some of this here. But this is the really important part of the painting, and I'm going to get started on that because I've got to get the tone of this correct for everything else to work. And it's quite fiddly, this. You can barely see the church tower, but if I over exaggerate that, the whole thing won't look real. So I'm going to get this tone right, and then there's very subtle colour variations in tone. There's a few little tonal contrasts in there. I need to preserve some of those whites, but I've got to get this part right, otherwise nothing else in the painting will work. So I'm going to move from I was doing everything with a couple of squirrel mops, and now I'm going to have to get into sable, this synthetic sable, and it's got a really nice point in it which I'm going to need. Now this is very tonal. I mustn't get distracted by colour or the wasps, and so I'm going to pick up a neutral grey here. These look like 4 blacks, but in fact this is neutral tint, this is neutral grey, this is warm grey, and this is cool grey. And it's really invaluable at a time like this to have greys, because they will give me They allow me to get the tone that I want in a grey, and then I may need some colour. I can just add that. But I must say this is quite a tricky thing to do here. In fact, I would say I've never done it before, but anyway, here we go. Let's see if this is dark enough. That's always the problem at this stage, is you may not go dark enough. So I have to work again quite quickly here. So coming from here, I'm going to pick up the warm grey, warm, and get in there. And once again, it's really important not to get hung up on any of this. Just floating some green into that. A little bit more blue. It's odd at this stage. You usually get into the fiddly stuff really much later, but the fiddly stuff here is too important right now. So I'm just going to have to concentrate here and hint at what's going on with these trees. Add some grey back in there, and this building I think is quite important, and then there's quite a few bits of burnt sienna I've got to go in. Burnt sienna goes into the grey here, warm grey. Let's have a little look at that. Yep. And of course, just as I speak, the light has taken a real major change for the duller. It's gone duller. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of red here for this cadmium red, and I'll pop that in there. I don't want it to be too bright, obviously, but I want to create some faraway interest. So far so good. A bit more red. I think we can afford to do that. And in a way, I'm just dying to get away from this because it's so fiddly. But I think that probably does it. A little bit of tower detail. Yeah, remarkably fiddly for this. The timing of this part of the painting, but you have to respond. You've got to remain flexible, and and respond to what's in front of you, really. So that feels like I can move on. So tonally, I'm still watching this for the right tones, and I need variation here as well. Variation. What you can't do is you can't paint trees individually. You've got to go for shapes. Always remember that what you're painting are lots of different shapes, and you know that's what will hopefully make it look as if there's some boats here. So I'll just carry on and get some shadow underneath these trees. There we go. And occasionally you get a nice little light patch, and it's nice if it bleeds in rather than has a hard edge. So that's what I'm doing there, keeping it all nice and fluid, and then we'll get into something a bit. Sometimes you just have to let your brush go. It knows better than your hand sometimes. Yeah, it's coming along. And you want variation, of course. Variation. So never stick with one mix for too long. Keep varying it. And this is what's called mixing on the paper. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get the green grass on the other side established with a nice strong brushstroke. There's the top of the boat, and yeah, let's do that. Let's get right across there. And hopefully that will dry nicely. I'll get some stronger darks into the edge here. Need some darker stuff, but blue into the mix there, and because I'm doing it while it's wet, it's having a nice effect. Hope you can see that. You've also got to watch the consistency of the paint. Just lost my water to the wind. So moving along. Just laying some stuff in there, and then mix in on the water, on the on the paper, I should say. And the line starts to change there. There's a tree that seems to go up against the, the skyline. Yep. Okay, that's nice. I'm quite liking what I've got here. I mustn't ignore other parts of the painting, but I think I'm okay at the minute. get some of this in. Yes. Okay. This tree to stand out just a tad. So let's do that. Ooh. And while it's nice and wet, I'll mix on the paper. I mean, there's the light is not particularly directional here, but I'm not here to copy the scene. That's very important. I'm here to make something of the scene, and there we go. This is just ultramarine blue straight from the palette. Ooh, nice. Sometimes it just does it itself. You just have to suggest. You know, it's just introduce the pigment and water mixture to the paper and let them get on with the thing that they do best, which is a kind of magic that you can't paint. Now this is quite an important tree in terms of scale. So just letting the brush dance a little bit. It's a good thing to do, is allow the brush to do some of the work. Just picking up here. Surprising how quickly the paint is drying very quickly. It's because of the wind. There's quite a bit of wind here, and so when you're out in the field, as they say, you've got to respond to the conditions, and it's all part of the excitement of painting out in the field. You can't get it anywhere else, but it's well, it's a helicopter going over. Still just working as quickly as possible here to exploit the mixing on the paper. Okay, I think that's probably enough of that, and just go down here. Just want to make sure I've got the right kind of perspective line there. So much of this is just about responding, and it's both the challenge and the fun of watercolour. Right, so I think we've got the far shore done. I hope it's not too green. What I need to do now is get this side in, and that's quite a bit darker. I'll do this first, which is the bank that I'm on. So I was working there with a number 10 synthetic sable. I'm going to go to a 12 because I want to keep this loose, and you'll notice that I'm always back in the same puddle on the palette, really. I need to get this tone of green for the left hand side, and well, I can always just pick up some neutral grey here if I want to darken it, because none of these change they change the tonal value, but they do not change the hue. So as you can see, that's how you do a weeping willow. And I got this bit wrong here. I didn't, I put more trees there than I ought to have done. So we'll get these trunks in. So burnt sienna. I need a little bit of substance here, so I'm going to pick up some lavender. That thickens the paint, and it also neutralises the warmer colours quite a bit. It makes it go, takes the heat out of them really. And then I want to get that darker for these branches, so I'll just go and pick up some of that neutral grey, and let's see what I can do here. I think this one goes, yes it does that. So, and this one over here comes yeah. Yeah, okay, so that one goes up there, and there's a branch goes up there. I like these bits where they go quite soft. That's an unexpected gift from the watercolour gods. Yeah, anyway, you're always trying to do watercolour with as few strokes as possible. That's the idea. That is the idea. Okay. And it's important that these trees, they link up. So coming over from here. And of course there's going to be lots of leaves eventually. But making connections here are important. I might have to go to a smaller brush. Let's see if we can get this bit done through. And I'm letting this brush get dry because I want that quality of brush stroke that you only get from a dry brush. So you can see it as it drags across the rough surface. What it does is it breaks up on the edge and gives you a nice, what's called broken edge. And so I'll just keep going. So we've got a few of these here, and none of this will actually make sense until I get these leaves in. Okay. So, time to get those leaves in. How do we do that? I'm going to use this mix here in the palette and mix up a green to the right tonal value as I see it, rather than squeeze a green out of a tube. I don't really want that. Green's got so many variants in it, and you need lots of variation. So this is one of those things, picking up some cool, neutral grey to bring the tonal value down, and I think, yeah, okay, so I'm just doing a little bit of rough edges with the brush, and I can see that there's quite a lot of clumpy leaves. So, but you can see how quickly the mix that was mixed up here in the palette just depletes itself, and you're struggling for. Yeah, I'm struggling for quantity, so I've got to mix it again. Cool grey, a bit of yellow. This is all just a kind of instinct, this stuff. Give it a little bit of body. Picked up way too much of that. That was probably a mistake. Yeah, I think it was a mistake, because I've got something completely different now. Yeah. I'm just going to pick up this sponge and make sure that I've got something to rub it off on. But yeah, this is still okay. Look. I thought I'd really messed it up there, but I changed the brush technique here. It's nice and dark here. So I made a little bit more water, a little bit darker here. Yeah, I went just a bit too heavy in there, but I think I've got away with it. Yeah. It seems to be working. There's a lot of nice edge here. That I just want to get the character of this tree, and some of these really come quite low. So be careful here that you don't either overdo it or you just get too sloppy. You want to do the minimum required to get the effect that you're after. And it's a good chance, well, it's good advice here, I think, to myself, which is stand back. Don't just keep doing it without judging what you're doing. But it needs all this. You need this connection here, and you can see how the paper itself is the surface of the paper is really helping here. Okay, right, probably should move on now. I think there's a little bit of something that I need to attend to here. It's just a colour thing. Yep, okay. And it does seem to go go out into the river here, about there, and then it comes down here. I'm just going to grab myself a brush, back to a squirrel, and mix some of this up here. So that's cerulean blue. Just gone a bit hard. I've got cadmium yellow there. That's very strong. That's cobalt turquoise. Oh, a nice brush full of this though, because I want one nice brush stroke to do this. Yeah, one nice brush stroke to do this. And I want it to get, I don't want it lighter or darker here. Yeah, just a little bit of variation in there. And if in doubt, give it a flick of the wrist and see what you get. So we're back into this shore that I'm standing on here, and there is a piece of curbing here, and then there's a variety of bits of undergrowth here. Just picking up a bit of raw sienna, and that will just come out there. You want to see that there is actually a brush stroke involved, you know. You don't want this to look too perfect. So far so good. It's time to do something here, and I need my spray. And I need some fresh water. So fresh water. So we've got mid-tones here, but what we don't have are any dark tones. And of course that is the bit that we've got to do now. These down there, fresh water. So first of all, I've got to decide which is the right brush for this. How am I going to do these shadows that hold it all together? I'm going to do this first. Dark green. Yeah. Okay. So I'm still with this mess here. Very dark green. Very dark green. Helicopter coming over now. And it needs to be darker. Darker, and a little bit warmer, and darker. So I'm just going to pick up this lovely neutral grey with a bit more of that in it. Now I'm thinking how I'm actually going to do this. It's going to go now. I've got the swans are coming by for their audition again. Yep, hi. They seem to sense that it's time for their little show of getting the painting. Yeah. I reckon it's time for them to get into the painting. So I'm still worrying about this bit. I know that it's one of these things where you just have to do, you can step over the mark very, very easily here. So easily. But you've got to trust your instinct. That's important.
There's literally nothing moving at the moment.
There we are. And I think I've tempted fate there. We'll see if I got anything out of it. So far so good. I now have to do this here. And hello. They're auditioning. The swans. Now I'm trying to wait for the moment when I can put some thicker pigment into this and it will sit. So I'm just going to try a little bit here and yep, we could be in business. Could be in business here. Well, who knows? This is one of those kind of things where you have to wait until it dries a little bit, and then you find out whether it's worked or not. This bit didn't. I don't think. But maybe I've got a chance of repairing it. So I'm trying to bring this all together here. And yeah, okay. So far, so good, as they say. So my painting is at the point where it's coming together. I have to judge what are the last things to do. I want to keep it fresh. I don't want to get into detail, but I can see a few little bits and pieces that need to be done, such as this distance here. I need to give a suggestion of the boats. So let's just see if we can get some nice dark tone underneath them. Maybe it needs a little bit more colour in the distance. Tiny amount. I'll just have to lean in here, frankly. There are just tiny little bits of. Well, we're you know, the wet in wet part has finished, I have to say, and now I've got to put in the darks and the lights. Usually this is done with what's called dry brush strokes, and I know I've not done this. I know I've not done my my swans yet. I did little sketches earlier, but I'm just surveying the whole thing and looking at tones, etc. Not sure, this might have to go a bit darker here and there, but I need to get these boats in. So I think it may be maybe time to do them, but the only reason I'm not doing these details here is I've got this all wet at the front, and in a way I need to just attend to that so that it is the destination for our eye. So I think it's dry here, but it is. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting in a baseline for a variety of boats and things that you can imagine are there. Yeah, I think that could be okay. Always you're just trying to do the minimum possible here. Minimum possible. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'll do that. Okay, so I now have to sort out this boat, having put it in there. And what is it? Well, I know boats are often painted white, but I think I'll make this one blue. Put a bit of colour into it. There's a barge coming up the river. I could turn it into a barge, but that's not very picturesque. So I'm going to use my memory of that boat. Okay, I'm going to put in first of all this little boat here. There we are. That's it. And then I'm going to put in this one. It's all about the tone of it. I just have to get the tone right. While it's there, I'll put in the colour. I'll put in its colour. So there it is, it's a blue boat. And now I have to put in the reflection. I have to put in the reflection. There we are. Then I need to get the tone here. boat, keeping in mind that it's got a little deck there, and that seems to have worked actually. Yeah, it seems to have worked. Who would have thought? Don't mess around with it too much. Boats have always got people in them, so I can't leave them without somebody there. Is there somebody on this? Is there? There must be. Yeah. So what I'm thinking about here is there somebody on this boat? Would it be better with somebody on the boat? I think it would. So the person is going to be here, and they are going to, their head is just above. So there they are. You can see a bit of them through the window. Yeah, navigating down there. I do think this needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to have to do that. So I'll mix up some more green from whatever is lying around really. So there's a bit of cadmium yellow in there. This is ultramarine blue. Still very strong in terms of colour, so I'm going to knock it down with some warm grey. Here is some Rossia, but it's still quite strong, isn't it? And that is also still quite strong. This is getting closer. A little bit more warm grey in here. I'll just wipe that off there. So let's see if that gives us. Yeah. Yeah, that gives us a little bit more tone where we need it. Just slightly too much show through there. And what this does is it gives us greater contrast with the background, and that's all to the good, really. Yep, that is better, and it means that some of those areas there they look like they've got light coming through them, and that's all part of the scene. I quite like this to be extended over here a little bit more. Again, I think I said this before, but you can spoil it at the very last minute, of course, at any time. It's the nature of watercolour. And once again, the sun has come out, so some of this is just too it's too light, I think. I'm not a fan of that bit there at all. So if in doubt, smudge it out. there's probably some detail that can be added here. Okay, do the swans go in? Well, look, they're posing, they're right in shot here. So it looks to me as if they want to be in. How do we do them? How do we do swans? I don't know, frankly. What I do know is that tonally, part of them is darker than the surrounding water. Part of them is lighter. Two swans. I quite like the idea of one here. Then we've got a little bit of a triangle. Maybe it's only one swan. Yes, I think two is probably too much. But what's their colour? Well, we know they're white, but the worst thing I can do is try and plant some white over in here. That looks like it could be a bit better. So that's the use of lavender there, and it's thicker pigment, so I think I'm going to do this swan here. Yeah, let's do the swan. And it had a bit of a shape like that, didn't it? And its tail is darker. Darker grey. Darker grey than that. And then we've got to put a little highlight on it. So I reach for my Jaune Brilliant. So we're right at the end of the painting when you reach for Jaune Brilliant. Here we are. It's to give some highlights. So it's straight out the tube. And maybe there's a few little bits and bobs here that need a lift. Not a lot. Maybe something there. Yeah, I think that swan needs to be darker at the base. Still darker. Better. Yeah. And if I just put this across its... White would be better, but I don't have white. There's a little swan. And maybe our person on the boat is lit up by a shaft of sunlight. Okay, I think this is all very loose here, but maybe it's better like that rather than trying to fiddle around with it. Yeah. Let's peel the tape and see what we've got. So that was the last of the... I can always do a little bit more when I get back in the studio and the paint will settle down a bit, but I think generally speaking I've done everything that I intended to do with this. The light has changed quite a bit throughout. But I tried to stick to a certain consistency of light with the tonal values, and we'll see what it's like when the tape comes off. So we're just going to do a bit of the fence here. I'm not quite sure how to do it, frankly. Just a little bit of a suggestion. It's a kind of negative painting is what's needed here. Bit of darker grey. I think what I need to do maybe is just yeah, it's kind of like negative painting here. There we are. Just a suggestion of a fence, really. What have we got? Have we got the fence there? That looked like a fence. Quite a rickety fence. Oh yeah, there was that bit there. Haha. Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that. Okay, that's... I don't want to do... I don't want it to look too considered, frankly. Yeah, it feels like there's something going on there, but I don't want to explain it. I really don't. There's always things you can do. There's always more you can do. It's whether it improves the painting. It might improve some of the detail, but it might take away from the spontaneity and the energy that a painting needs to have. There's always a little bit of this that you can add in. It's not going to do any harm, but what I mustn't do is start to do too much of it. So I think we're there. Well, just as we finish, the sun comes out. There's a lovely picturesque little boat coming up the river, which I would have loved to paint, but you paint what's in front of you, and you also paint what your original vision of the composition and the atmosphere was. The light has changed quite a lot throughout the painting. I've tried to stick to what I saw at the beginning, and I think it's an important lesson to learn is don't try and copy what's in front of you, try and interpret what's in front of you and give an idea of a mood or an atmosphere. It doesn't need detail, there's more than enough detail here. But bit by bit the painting emerged, and it takes a little bit of patience. But things I like, I think we've got a nice contrast here around the focal point, nice sparkly bits of light, and I think your eye does go straight down there. That was my original vision. These are just sort of stepping stones along the way. This helps to frame it, as does this. There's got a nice watery feeling here. Maybe it could be a bit darker, but it's nice softness here that goes, I think, with the swan. You could get too hard with your tones here, so I've left it on the soft side and I'm quite happy with it. So enjoy painting it. Thanks.